Hey everyone, and welcome to day number 3 of the Unwind Sew Along. Today we are going to be working on the leg ruffles. We are going to be working on the color blocked piece, and we're going to be totally finishing up our joggers. So we're going to put the front on our backs, we're going to put the waistband on and our jogger cuffs on, and we will be completely done by the end of today. This is my little helper. Say hi, Robbie!
Okay, so I've got one of my jogger front pieces and I have one of my leg ruffle pieces, and we are going to match up the raw edges of this angled piece here with the raw edges of our ruffle. And we're going to go ahead and pin that. There we go. So we are all ruffled evenly and pinned to our leg. So when you're pinning your color block piece to your pant, you are going to look for this little corner that's been clipped here on the corner of your pattern piece here. And this is going to be the side that we sew to our pants. Okay, so I've matched my piece up like this, so I can see that this is going to be the edge that we line up with the raw edge of our ruffle. There we go. Now we are going to sew along here with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, or you can go ahead and search that off. So now we've got that piece sewn together. You could press the ruffles this way and top stitch, or you could press the ruffles this way and top stitch. I like the ruffles pointing down to have the contrast to the ruffles that are pointing up here at the pocket. So I'm going to press it this way and top stitch with a zigzag stitch. And this is what it should look like when you are ready to move on. So we are going to do that exact same thing with the other side of the pant. Okay, once you have finished that ruffle on both of the legs, we can start to assemble our pants. So there's two ways that we can do this next part. We can put our front pieces together, right sides together, and sew along here and do the same with our back pieces and then put those two together. Or we can do it like the pattern says and put our back pieces right sides on top of our front pieces. I'm going to go ahead and do it the way the pattern suggests. I'm putting my back pieces on top of my front pieces, and we're going to be lining up these long side edges and pinning. Okay, when you get to this ruffle part, I like to just lay it flat and make sure that the ruffle is going to be caught in that edge how I want it to be caught. So I want my ruffle pointing down like this, so I'm making sure that it's facing that direction. I'm just making sure it's all nice and flat before I start pinning. few extra pins in the ruffle part. Okay, perfect. So now we are just going to sew along there, either with a stretch. And this is how that's going to look when opened up. So my ruffle is in this seam right here, just exactly the way I want it. Same with up here at the pocket. And now we're going to do the same with the other pieces. Okay, so the next step is to put our left side on top of our right side. Right sides together. We're going to do that, and we're going to make sure these little funny angles match up, and we are going to pin on both of those angles. Okay, we're going to sew or serge along those crotch pieces. Okay, we've sewn our crotch angles here. Now we are going to pull these seams apart like this. And now you will see how we are starting to have a bit of a jogger shape here. So the next part we're going to sew is our inseam here. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my center seams are nested. And then I'm going to pin down each of the side legs, each of the leg sides. Now we just need to sew or serge along our inseam. All right, so this is how it looks from the inside. Let's turn it out and see how it looks. Okay, we are definitely getting somewhere. Now we can see that our joggers are starting to take fruition here. The next thing we have to do is add our waistband and ankle cuffs. Okay, now before getting started with our cuffs and waistband, I just wanted to explain something to you that might be important for the leg sizes. So you can see these are my two ankle cuffs, and one appears to be much bigger than the other one, but it's actually just that it's longer in one direction than the other direction. So when you are sewing your ankle cuffs, you need to make sure that your first fold we're putting the longest sides together, right sides together like this, okay? Not like this. We're gonna end up with a cuff that's too wide here if we fold it in half widthways. We need to have it folded in half lengthwise. Okay, so we're going to fold it this way and this way. And you can see they are the same size. We're going to sew along here and here. There we go. So I have sewn the long edges of our ankle cuffs, and now I'm going to fold it back on itself like this, only so far as to meet the short raw edges. So we're only folding it back on itself halfway. So, and I'm just going to make sure that the seam is nice and nested, and I'm going to pin it in place. go. Same with the other side. Cuffs are ready. Now we need to work on the waistband. For our waistband piece, we are going to fold it with flies. So we're taking the short edge and meeting it up at the other short edge, just like this, and we're going to sew along the short raw edges. There we go, I've sewn along this short edge, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to fold it back on itself, just enough that the raw edges meet up. I'm going to nest seams together, pin it, it's folded nicely all the way along. And there's our waistband ready to go. Now we are getting ready to put our waistband on our joggers. So the first thing we need to do is mark our quarters. So I have my back seam there, and I'm just going to fold it in half at the back seam like this to find my center front, and I'm going to mark that with a pin. So then I'm going to put the pins together to find the quarters. Mark those with pins as well. There we go. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pins in here, and they are going to match up with the back jogger seam, the front jogger seam, and the 2 side seams. So I'm going to go ahead and match up my raw edges. I'm going to do right sides together. And make sure your waistband is facing the right direction. I'm just going to match up those pins that I made to each of the seams of the joggers. Okay, so I have now pinned my quarters. And the next step is going to be to stretch the waistband to fit the rest. So I like to take 2 places where I pinned and pull until the joggers are flat against the waistband, not too far, just until the pants lay flat against the waistband. And then I'll take these 2 pins that we put in to mark to keep the pocket pieces in place. I'm going to pinch there. Add the waistband into that. Down here, stretch, pinch, pin. Grab the next 2 pins, stretch until it's flat, pinch in the middle. That was a pin. Grab the next 2 pins, stretch till it's flat. I like to put 2 or 3 pins in between the quarters. I reach as far out as I can with my fingers, line up the raw edges and pinch, pin, stretch, pinch, pin. we're going to keep doing that all the way around the waistband. There we go. I have my waistband evenly stretched around my joggers. Now you can serge that if you have a serger, but I'm going to use my sewing machine just so that I can show you how I stretch and sew. So I'm going to go ahead and use a stretch stitch. This is very important for around the waistband. So a triple stitch or a zigzag stitch or a lightning stitch are great options for stretch stitches once again. I'm just going to go ahead and use a straight stitch because I'll probably take it out later. Actually, you know what? I'll use a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to use a zigzag stitch with a length of 2 and a width of 2. And I'm going to choose a side seam to start at. And I'm going to put my presser foot down right on top of that pin and put my needle in the down position. Okay, and I'm going to take the pin that's in front of that and I'm going to pull on it until the joggers lay flat and no more. If I pull any more than that, you're going to have a rippled effect in your waistband and it's not going to be pretty. So just until the joggers lay flat. I'm going to go ahead and backstitch. I'm going to stop with my needle down when I get to the next pin. I'll take the pin out, grab the next pin and pull. Make sure everything's laying flat and I'm not pulling too much, and I'm going to sew to the next pin. Pull it out and do the same thing all the way around the waistband. And there we have the waistband. So I found some tags in my drawer and I'm just going to add one to the back of the joggers so my daughter knows which is the back and which. I mean, it's kind of obvious with the pockets, but I just thought I'd use this as an excuse to show you how I add tags. So I'm going to add it to the back here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to wedge it in underneath my seam allowance. Oh, it's not okay. I'm going to wedge it underneath my seam allowance. I'm going to fold the seam allowance down on top of the raw edges of my tag like this. And I'm going to pin it in place. Make sure it's nice and centered. So. In a minute. That pin did not even reach through. There we go. Perfect. So I have pinned it kind of underneath my seam allowance like this. And I'm just going to sew right along my serger seam there to keep it in place. And that's how it looks right there. Now we need to work on our cuffs. So it's the exact same process as our waistband. I like to put the seam of the cuffs on the inside of the leg, in the inseam rather than the outseam, because it's less noticeable when people are looking at somebody wearing the pants if it's on the inside. So I'm going to slide pant leg through the cuff and match up that inseam with the seam from my cuff. That. You can mark halves if you want. I can do it this way, so I can see that this is going to be the corner. I just mark it with my finger and make sure that the other side seam goes right where my finger is. Pinch and pin. Stretch to mark the quarters. Be easier when you sew it. Just until that rubber lays flat. Pinch. Pin. The other side. Grab the 2 pins, 2 half pins, stretch until it lays flat, match it up, pinch, there. I'm just going to serge those. And there you have it. We are done our cuffs. We are done our waistband, and everything is beautifully done. There's how the ruffles look, here and here. So cute. Now we just need to give it a good press, and it is ready for wearing.
Yay! We did it! Congratulations on finishing your Unwind Joggers, and I will see you next time.